Hey, welcome back to English Makes Sense. In episode 3, we will be learning about the doubling rule. In order for this to make sense, we need to have some shared vocabulary. When a base word is talked about, we are simply referring to the simplest form of an English word, such as run, play, or star. A prefix is letter or letters that are added to the beginning of a base that alter the meaning. Examples of prefixes are re, un, and miss. A suffix works similar to a prefix, except that these are letter or letters that are added to the end of the base. The important thing to remember about prefixes and suffixes is that even though these don't create a word all by themselves, they still mean something. So that's what enables them to alter the meaning of the base. And then when you add prefixes and suffixes to a base, the result is called a derivative. Okay, that's just a big word for an easy concept. So run is a base. Ing is a suffix, you put them together, running is a derivative. All right. One other tricky concept that we want to make sure you're clear on before we get into the rule is that sometimes when we're spelling, ed can be a little bit difficult, the suffix ed. And that's because the suffix ed has 3 sounds. The first one we hear at the end of the derivative, asked. Okay, so when we look at the base, the very last sound or phoneme in the base is k, k. If you make that sound, you don't feel any vibrations in your vocal cords. And you can tell that by just like resting your hand on your throat when you say k, no vibrations. The ed says t, which also doesn't make any vibrations. So when the base word ends in that unvoiced sound, the ed will make its unvoiced sound, which is t. The next sound for ed is d, d. This is a voiced sound. When you feel your vocal cords, when you're saying this sound, you should feel some vibrations. So if we look at the base, aim, the is a voiced sound. Therefore, the ed will make its voiced sound, which is d. Then when you look at a base word like plant, it already ends in t. So anytime a base word ends in t or d, the ed will have to say ed. So that's how you can tell which sound the ed will make when we're talking about forming a derivative. All right, now let's get into an example of our rule. Let's look at this little girl on the screen, and she is hopping. Hopping. When I hear that word, I hear 2 syllables in this particular word. Not all derivatives have more than 1 syllable, but this one does. But it's important when we listen to a word, if we think there's a suffix, we need to be mindful of which part is the base word and which part is the suffix, because there will be some spelling decisions that depend on being able to hear the base versus the suffix. So we have hop, ing, base word, suffix. Now let's think about how we spell what we hear. Okay, when we're thinking about the base word, hop, it has 3 phonemes. So we're going to spell that the way that we would normally think about spelling it. It's easy to spell, just a closed syllable. And then our suffix ing has 2 phonemes, which we spell with 3 letters, ing. All right, now let's check what we wrote to see if when we go back and try to read this word, if it sounds like we expect. So we wrote our base, HOP, plus our suffix, ing. But wait a minute, when we get ready to read this, our rule says find our vowels, and we can separate the syllables by dividing after that first vowel. That's the most common way to split our syllables. When we do this, that creates an open syllable, and that would make the O give a different sound. The O is going to say O instead of ah. So instead of hopping, we ended up with hoping. That's not what we wanted. In order to fix this, we've got to make a change. Similar to our rabbit rule, if we're getting the wrong vowel sound for that first syllable, then we've got to double that consonant to keep our vowel sound stable. So when we do that, we created a closed syllable in the first part of the word. That's going to keep the vowel short. So our word now is hopping. So when we think about our doubling rule, this one is really easy to remember. If we have a base word that ends in one vowel followed by one consonant, that means that it also is going to be one accent. You're going to accent that base word, and that tells us that we're going to double that final consonant before adding a vowel suffix. Okay, so let's look at another example here. If we wanted to create the word runner, we wanted to make that derivative by adding the suffix er to the base word run, we could start counting at our vowel. We have one vowel followed by one consonant. So 1, 2, double, I do. This creates runner. Let's say we had the base word jump. We're going to start counting with this one. We started our vowel, 1, 2, 3, no double for me. The derivative would be jumped. There's no need to double anything because those two consonants are ensuring that that vowel preserves its short sound in that base word. So let's look at a few more examples before we close out. In the words star, run, and plan, these all, if we start counting at the vowel, we have one vowel followed by one consonant. That means that the base word will have the accent, and all of our suffixes in the doubling examples, we're adding a vowel suffix. So yes, we would have to double that final consonant before adding a suffix in those bases. Let's look at some non-examples just to make sure we're clear. In the base cook, there are two vowels, so there's no need to double anything. In the example with hat plus less, we're adding a consonant suffix. So again, there's no need to double anything. This rule only applies to vowel suffixes. And in our final example, we have the base word plant, which ends in two consonants. So there's no need to double. The doubling rule again says we have one vowel followed by one consonant. There's one accent, and we're adding a vowel suffix. That tells us to double the final consonant. So I hope this clears things up for you as to when to double or not double. Thanks for watching.